But the truth of the matter is, when you think about how we're influenced by our friends, it becomes really critical, whether you can be part of that group, whether you can interact and communicate. All of those things are what we're driven by. Like as humans, we actually want to be around other people. You know, as you get older, to varying degrees, right? Like
certainly. Hello, everyone. It is great to be here again with you, Dana, to continue our conversation.
Oh, thank you. I love having these conversations, as always.
They're
Thanks,
so
Kate.
Good. So this episode, we're going to be continuing on with this season's theme of discussing the F words.
Love it.
We are moving on to one of my favourite F words, and that's friends.
I love Friends.
I know.
Not just the TV show.
That too.
But what it all means.
Yes.
It's actually great. I mean, how wonderful is it that in a medical model that Friends is actually a key feature in it?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I can see why it's a favourite.
Yes. Well, I mean, for me, I know at the start of our journey, friend is definitely not a word that I would have associated with therapy.
Yeah, fair.
So I wish that, I think I've said it before, I wish that I knew about these F words a bit earlier. I think if I'm really honest, friend probably got put on the back burner.
Yeah.
And therapy took precedence over anything to do with friends for not only our child, but for us too. So our whole lifestyle, everything changed drastically.
Yeah.
And it's only knowing all of this now and looking back on things retrospectively that I can say, oh my gosh, I really wish I incorporated friend into our child's life a lot earlier when it came to therapy and it came to all of his development and all the things that we were doing, but you just get so fixated on that 0 to 2 and neuroplasticity and blah, blah, blah that you think, oh, well, everything else will come along later. We just need to go hard on the therapy now and not think about all of that sort of emotional development and all of those things that come with incorporating friends into your therapy goals, your lifestyle.
So true.
Yeah.
That's such great honesty, and it's the reality. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Like you can always look back and go, oh my goodness, I wish I'd known. And you try to pass on that wisdom to everyone else.
Exactly.
The truth is it's a process that you do work through, but it's also the people that you meet along the way and hoping that if you do meet people along the way who do value those elements, like, your well-being and friends, then you'll think about it a little bit earlier as well. But it takes time to find those people as well, right? Because you're just navigating a whole system.
Yeah. As well as all the research, the self-research that you do and all the stuff that you put onto yourself. And I think when you're so fixated as a parent, you might have those people in your world that are sort of saying it. Yeah. But until you're ready to hear it and acknowledge it and understand it, you're not actually hearing that and realising that there's people around you trying to help encourage those things.
It's true. And my take on from that as well is, like, as a health professional, it's so important to go, but I've already told them that. Because you do talk about things, but people are not ready until they're ready. We're all like that. Yes. And just to keep that information ready, mention it, just to put it on, not just to keep on the back burner, sometimes just bring it to the forward and bring it back again.
Exactly. Find different ways of introducing it into the conversation
That's right. So I think it's really important that we need to make sure that we come back to these conversations. Yes. And, it's our responsibility to be able to do that as well, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really great reflection and definitely true.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, friends from a very, not to make it too therapeutic in any way, but it has to be the core of what we think about for our kids. Yeah. And I have to admit that when the F words came out and it put it in the forefront, there's some other lovely F words there as well. So that, there's family, and we'll talk about that in another episode.
Yes.
But when you think about friends, it feels like it feels really, fluffy.
Yes.
Right? You kind of
agree.
it sounds just a little bit fluffy.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, when you think about how we're influenced by our friends, it becomes really critical, whether you can be part of that group, whether you can interact and communicate. All of those things are what we're driven by. Like as humans, we actually want to be around other people. As you get older, to varying degrees, right? Like
certainly.
But you get the choice. And it all comes down to that autonomy. And I've been reading this lovely research lately, and we'll be talking about it in Research Works as well, is they were asking young adults and teenagers what their view of participation is.
Yeah.
And they talk so much about, like, they just want to do life and they want autonomy.
Yeah.
And just give me my autonomy, which means opportunities to be part of life. And they talk about the circle of friends, the circle of supports.
Yeah.
So, that's a reflection of a young person that we work with right now. Your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old is going to be a teenager.
Yeah.
Scary.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on to your horses.
Yeah.
And they're going to be young adults who want to contribute to this world and be part of this world.
Yeah.
So when you go right back down to it, yes, all those things that we talk about, mobility and fitness, all those things are important, but they're just the gateway to get into the really meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
And that number one thing is friends.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's the way I see it these days.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you some stuff about friends now before I go into it even more, because I'll talk about it to death. When did you start thinking about friends?
I think it probably wasn't until, I know I've mentioned this before, a conversation that you and I had. And I think our little dude was probably about 2.5, maybe 2.
Right.
And we'd been going pretty hard at therapy. And I think we'd had some conversations that had helped you realise that we were probably putting everything on the back burner. And it wasn't until we started daycare that I could see that, I guess, a gap.
Yeah.
So our little man really liked watching and seeing what the other kids were doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's seen a lot of things for the first time and been exposed to children that are loud and playing and all of those sorts of things.
That's right. Yep.
That's when it really started. I started to then register how we need to start thinking about goals that can incorporate how he can communicate with his peers, how he can play with his peers, how he can be around. Like, it even just starts off that simple of just being around other children, because if they're not around other children that are lively and loud, like, that's your first step, is just helping them to just be around it, let alone participating. And so I think that was probably my first real reflection on, oh, hang on a second, I need to start thinking about this. Yeah.
And what a moment to think about that, because I think it's so, we can become so used to kids just being around adults. As therapists, I mean, thank goodness we are adults. We've got qualifications and all that kind of thing. Phew. But, there is such a rich component when you are interacting with people your own age.
Yes.
Same height.
Yes.
Same communication style where, to us doesn't make sense, but somehow they can give each other a look and you can pass the truck.
Yeah.
There is something about that, and it's the social cues that they're learning and you learn them early on. So this comes down to my first truth about it, is that the reason why we want to have, when we talk about mobility being a human right, is because mobility in all its forms and its different ways is a way that is a gateway for social, emotional communication, is participation. So mobility, whether you are able to propel yourself in a wheelchair, whether you're able to propel yourself in a walker or walk independently, no matter how it is that you do it, it's the choice and control about how you do that that allows you then to be able to be part of the world. So it doesn't matter how mobility looks, it's just making sure that someone has the ability to have the opportunity to mobilize in their way. And we can always adapt for that. And when you have that, you start thinking about the opportunities that we might have. And that is quality of life.
Most definitely.
Right? Like, we think about, yes, fitness is great. How does that relate to quality of life? Actually allows you to do what you want to do with your friends. And so that's quality of life. You hear the age-old thing about when everyone's, New Year's resolutions and you're not very fit. They're like, oh my gosh, I played with my kids for 2 minutes and I was exhausted. Because the fitness is the gateway to the quality of life that you want.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing for our kids. It's, and it sounds like when you guys went to daycare for the first time, he was looking. So then if he looks and he wants, he can go.
Yes.
And then it's the gateway to everything else at that point.
Exactly. And then as they get older, like, they shift. So then we had kindy last year. And so we were already working on, our child does neglect one side of his body a bit more. That's how he's affected. And so we were thinking, and he doesn't talk. So we were thinking, how can we help him with communication, with his friends, with his teachers? They all walk in the morning and say good morning to each other. He can't do that, or he doesn't do that at the moment. So then we started incorporating doing a high five with that side of his body. And so it's not just that he then is having his own awareness, he's creating some functions, he's functionally able to do that, but then he's also got a way of communicating, of participating in a greeting like all the other kids, and all the teachers at the school know that that's his thing now. So whenever, even just the teachers that he has nothing to do with, if they see him, they'll stop and say, oh my gosh, can I have a high five?
Yeah.
And he gives the cutest little smile. So, you know, he likes it. So that's the other part that we always talk about, you know, their buy-in. So he wanted a way of communicating.
Yeah.
And so, we were able to create that. So, like, it's things that you don't even, like, I don't think I even would have thought of that when he was younger.
How rich and how beautiful it is for him.
Yeah.
And he feels part of all of it.
Yeah.
So I guess that comes to my next part that I would really want to bring forward of this is how we define participation.
Yes.
Now, all of this is about participating, right, with your friends.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about kids at the moment because we do need to talk about ourselves as adults, you know, looking after these beautiful young people. But participation means being involved in life. That's essentially what participation is. And we all have different ways of being able to be involved in life.
Yes.
And they've actually broken it down to two components. Are you participating by attending, like being there? So you can participate in a concert. You're not singing with everyone else, but you can be there. And you're still there with everyone else. You're still participating. And that might be really meaningful for you. You might go to a party. You don't know anyone, and you're not talking to anyone, but you don't mind just being there. You're at the party. You're participating.
You're enjoying celebrating whatever you're there for.
That's right. So you can talk about that from they've gone to school, they're at school, they're there. So by just being there, you are participating in school. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The next stage from there is to be involved.
Yes.
So how involved are you? So involvement then is the next aspect of it, is actually it's starting those interactions in a way that means something to you, and how you described what it is that your boy does when he goes to school, that he's not only participating, he's not only there, he's involved.
Exactly.
And he's communicating his way. So it's always worthwhile thinking about that when we're thinking about setting goals. Is like, how does this help? What is it that I'm working on right now in therapy that's going to help my child to be either there or to be involved?
Yes.
And if we can't identify that, we really have to question what we're doing, because otherwise, you know, the age-old thing we keep talking about is you don't do therapy to be good at therapy.
Yes, exactly.
We're not in here to be able to talk to each other here. It's so that we can go out. So how are we getting involved? And I think this always comes down to the core of why we want to do evidence-based therapy. It comes down to that again, because we don't want to take away a child's opportunity to be involved in meaningful places like school, to make friends.
Yes.
Because making friends is so core to their well-being.
Yes.
So if you're doing a therapy that isn't going to work, or you're spending excess time on something that hasn't shown any outcomes, we call it the grey area of harm. You know, from a medical land, it's like, do no harm. Which is a good place to start, right?
I like that.
Do no harm. But the next area is grey area of harm. This is not like you're like harming a child, but you are in a grey way by taking them away from things that are really important. So if we're doing therapy, are we going to do it? If it's going to make a lot of sense for them to actually learn those skills, they can go out into the world, and there's a good balance, great. But if we don't know the effect of it, and we don't know exactly what it is we're doing, we're spending hours at it, and it means you're replacing that with opportunities to make friends, we have to think twice.
Exactly.
We have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm not sure any of us would want to exchange that.
Oh, most definitely not. Imagine that. You're giving up this valuable time for your child where you could be out doing other things.
Yeah, that's right.
Doing a therapy, trusting in that this therapy is going to have outcomes, and then you're not getting those outcomes. It's not only a waste of time and money, but exactly as you say, you've wasted the opportunity for your child to have had some other type of developmental opportunity.
That's right. And on the flip side of that as well, who's bringing them to therapy? You're doing so much of it. So if that's you, well, you could be with your friends too.
Or working, having an income.
That's right, because you find meaningful
contributions.
Taking your child to
the park.
Exactly. And those things are so enriching. We must not forget about how important they are. So that's why it comes back down. Is friends fluffy? It sounds fluffy, but when you go deeper into it,
so crucial
for everyone.
Yeah.
I can see why it's a favourite.
Yes, definitely a favourite. And I'm really excited to hear from other parents how they think of it as well, and when they had their realisation, how they're incorporating it, especially like we're still quite early in our journey. So it'll be great to talk to some other parents who are maybe further down that road to see what that looks like. I know I'm learning so much from the other parents, like already our next set of goals after speaking with Kelly's, we're looking at learning to kick the ball and throw the ball into a hoop and all of those things so that at playtime, our son can be more involved in
That's
those
right.
activities and
Yep.
potentially in the future community activities with his friends that they are already doing. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I'm really looking forward
That's
to hearing
the kind
from
of goal
more
we
people.
want. Yeah. And you said the key word, being involved.
Exactly.
Being
Being involved.
So let's think about that. Being involved in therapy is a completely different
Yes.
thing. How is what you're doing in therapy contributing to the ability for your child to be involved? And it all comes down to that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, I look forward to talking to more people about
Yes,
friends.
this is going to be exciting.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Thanks for bringing up this beautiful topic. And to everyone, I hope you really enjoyed that. We'll talk to you all again really soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.